Good morning. I want to share with you today one of my favorite stories. And if you are a fourth or fifth grader, I think you remember when I did this one back in third grade. But third graders, this is one I typically do with you, and we haven't gotten a chance. The story is called Epossumondas, and it's a folk tale, and we've talked about folk tales before. But more specifically, it's also considered a noodlehead tale. So think in your heads, what would a noodlehead tale be? I'm sure you could imagine about the person or animal's behavior which would make the story a noodlehead tale. The story is written by Colleen Sally, and I used to have an audio recording of Colleen Sally at another school where she read this story, and she was amazing. I don't have that anymore, so I'm going to try and imitate how she read the story. She was a really neat lady, and she lived in New Orleans, Louisiana. And this story comes from the south of our country, and she definitely brings in that feel to her stories. So this is written by Colleen Sally. It's illustrated by Janet Stevens. If you remember, Janet Stevens is the illustrator of lots of books, but back in first grade we read Cook-a-Doodle-Doo, and we also read The Great Fuzz Frenzy, and those are both illustrated by Janet Stevens, so you definitely would recognize some of her work. So this is Epossumondas, written by Colleen Sally, illustrated by Janet Stevens. As I'm reading, try and think about all the things we would talk about in class. Think about characters, think about settings, think about the plot, think about what meaning are we taking away from this story, what can we infer. Epossumondas, written by Colleen Sally, illustrated by Janet Stevens. Epossumondas was his mama and his auntie's sweet little patootie. They just loved him to death. Epossumondas used to go see his auntie almost every day, and she nearly always gave him something to take home with him. One day, she gave him a piece of rich gold cake. Epossumondas took it in his hand, scrunched his hand up tight, and went along home. On his way home, he passed Alligator, and Alligator asked, "What you got, Epossumondas?" "Cake," he replied. Don't look much like cake to me," said Alligator. When Epossumondas got home, his mama looked at that fist full of crumbs and she said, "Epossumondas, what do you have in your hand?" "Cake, Mama. Auntie gave it to me." "Oh, Epossumondas, you don't have the sense you were born with. That's no way to carry a cake. The way to carry cake is to put the cake on your head, put a hat on your head, and come along home. Do you hear me, Epossumondas?" "Yes, Mama." By and by, on another day, when Epossumondas was visiting his auntie, this time she gave him a pound of freshly churned butter to take home with him. Epossumondas put it on his head, put the hat on his head, and went along home. On his way home, he passed Raccoon, and Raccoon asked, "What you got, Epossumondas?" "Butter," he replied. Don't look much like butter to me," said Raccoon. When Epossumondas got home, his mama looked at him, and she said, "Epossumondas, what do you have in that hat?" "Butter, Mama. Auntie gave it to me." "Oh, Epossumondas, you don't have the sense you were born with. That's no way to carry butter. The way to carry butter is to wrap it in some leaves, and you carry it down to the brook, and you cool it in the water, and you cool it in the water, and you cool it in the water, and you take it up carefully in your hands and come along home. Do you hear me, Epossumondas?" "Yes, Mama." By and by, on another day when Epossumondas was visiting his auntie, this time she gave him a sweet little puppy dog to take home with him. So Epossumondas wrapped it in some leaves and carried it down to the brook. And he cooled it in the water, and he cooled it in the water, and he cooled it in the water. And then he took it up carefully in his hand and went along home. On his way home, he passed Nutria, and Nutria asked, "What you got, Epossumondas?" "A puppy," he replied. Don't look much like a puppy to me," said Nutria. When Epossumondas got home, his mama looked at that poor little bedraggled puppy and she said, "Epossumondas, what do you have in your hands?" "A puppy, Mama. Auntie gave it to me." "Oh, Epossumondas, Epossumondas, you don't have the sense you were born with. That's no way to carry a puppy. The way to carry a puppy is to put the puppy on the ground, tie a piece of string around the puppy dog's neck, and take the piece of string and come along home. Do you hear me, Epossumondas?" "Yes, Mama." I think we can all see what's coming, right? Well, by and by, on another day when Epossumondas was visiting his auntie, this time she gave him a freshly sliced loaf of bread to take home with him. Epossumondas put the bread on the ground, tied a piece of string around it, took the other end of the string, and went along home. On his way home, he passed Armadillo, and Armadillo asked, "What you got, Epossumondas?" "Bread," he replied. Don't look much like bread to me," said Armadillo. When Epossumondas got home, his mama looked at the thing on the end of the string and she said, "Epossumondas, what do you have at the end of that string?" "Bread, Mama. Auntie gave it to me." "Oh, Epossumondas, Epossumondas, you don't have the sense you were born with. You never did have the sense you were born with. You never will have the sense you were born with. Now, I'm not telling you any more ways of bringing truck home, and I don't want you going to see your auntie. I'll go see her myself." And Epossumondas, his mom, got her basket, but before she left, she said, "Epossumondas, do you see those pies cooling there on the porch?" "Yes, Mama." "Well, Epossumondas, you be careful about stepping on those pies." Then Mama went off to see Auntie. And then Epossumondas was careful about stepping on those pies. He stepped right in the middle of every one. And that's the end. So things to think about now that that story has ended is see if you can figure out what made this a noodlehead tale. The other thing that I was thinking you could think about is what meaning can we take away from this story? What do you think the author was trying to tell us? And finally, what happened at the very end with the pies? When they said she told him, she said, "You be careful about stepping on those pies." And you could see he did. What happened? What can we infer from all of this? And what could Epossumondas not infer? One interesting thing that I wanted to share is that Colleen Sally, who wrote this book, I think it's really interesting, while she didn't illustrate it, to see what she looks like, and I'm going to show you a picture of her on my computer. If my cameraman could zoom in a little here. I think it's kind of interesting if you look at what she looked like. She looks an awful lot like the lady in the story. So when Janet Stevens illustrated this story, I have a feeling she must have modeled her character in here, Epossumondas' mom, after Colleen Sally. I hope you're all making good use of your time at home, relaxing, enjoying yourself, but please make sure you're doing lots of reading, read lots of books, and I'm going to keep sharing books for you to enjoy through video. If you want to comment on any of these questions to me, feel free, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. We good?